All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, welcome everybody. Now, hopefully everything will do what it's supposed to do, which is to share my PowerPoint. So let me go and open that first. And then you'll be able to see my first slide, hopefully. It's all a little bit new, isn't it, to us, this whole online scenario? I did, yes. And I believe we're not the only ones who are struggling. I hear that teachers in schools are getting very low turnouts, and students are not showing up to class, and students are not putting their videos on, and there's all sorts of problems, I think, with the online learning and teaching, which is why we're here. We want to do a better job, inshallah. So let's see. There we are. Okay, so hopefully you can now see my PowerPoint. So that's what I want to see. Can someone tell me if they can see my first slide?
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, good. So flipped classroom and RTL, remote teaching and learning. And so we're going to be talking about firstly flipped classroom and how that works, and then how we may adapt it to online learning, which we're now exposed to and subject to. But before that, a little bit about myself, very short sentence. I'm an assistant professor at College of Education, and I'm here because I love to share my ideas in teaching and learning. And if you want to know more, or you want to know me, my email is below. But moving on to today's objectives, this is what we're going to try to achieve today. We have 2 hours to do it. And the first is to learn a bit about flipped classroom theory, or the theory behind it. And then your job is to design and upload materials for your subject area using different platforms and online apps. Then I think we may not do the online lesson plan. We may just do a simplified version, which is your objectives, your activities, and your assessment. And then I have a few tips to share with you from my experience, which I've been using with my students. And then I'm hoping, if there's time, that you will share a joke with us. So those are the objectives for today. So let's ask ourselves the question, what is FCM, or flipped classroom method? And just want to also reiterate that today is a workshop as opposed to a training. Now in a training, I tell you everything you have to do. In a workshop, you have to do it. So there will be some work. I hope you're ready for that, which is why we're going to have breakout rooms later, inshallah. Now, this is a question that I've been asking myself, because as I've been teaching my students and my students have been doing activities, I start to find myself becoming a bit like an entertainer, you know, having fun and having games. And then I ask myself, well, what is the difference between entertainment and education? And I throw that question open to you. So if anyone would like to give their opinion about that. We're all in the business of education, but we also tend to try to entertain our students. So is there a difference? And if so, what is it?
I'll go first, Doctor.
Sure.
Okay. The thing about education and learning is that I believe that, you know, we need to capture the students' attention we need to get to capture the student attention. So by having them give attention to us, inshallah, the learning could be taken place. So one way of doing this is actually to, you know, to have the interest in our teaching. So if they feel that, you know, like this is boring, I don't want to be here. So it kind of like pointless to be there to teach them, because they may not be, you know, able to absorb what we are teaching them. That's why we need to, you know, to have the class that is kind of entertaining in a way that you capture their attention. That's my opinion on this.
Okay. So you're saying we entertain our students to to keep them engaged. Anybody else like to suggest what they see? Is it similar? Is it different? If so, what's the difference? I can't hear anything. I'm assuming that no one's talking.
May I have a go on the definitions, please? Soraya here from Medicine.
Sure, sure.
The differences, I think, on entertainment and education. Entertainment per se as a standalone, there is no transfer of knowledge. It's purely for relaxation. However, education, on the other hand, there has to be an element of transfer of knowledge. However, in education, there must be an element where you need to, as what the previous person had said, you must have an element of engagement, and an element of engagement could be, entertainment could be a form of it. So in the gist, entertainment, transfer of knowledge does not take place, may not take place, but education, the primary objective is to transfer of knowledge. Thank you.
Okay, good answer. Of course, there isn't any one right answer, but because it's an open question. And I mean, I've thought about it too. And here are some points that I came up with, which is similar to what you've said. I think in education, we have clear learning objectives. You know, we're trying to achieve a goal of knowledge or skills or attitude. We're trying to transfer something to the students. I mean, in entertainment, we're transferring fun perhaps, and there may be learning, but it's not the objective. And then the second one I've put is that we do use entertainment for education, but they're not the same thing. We're doing it for a purpose, aren't we? And the purpose is the objective. So that was what I call a high order thinking question, just to get your brains switched on and to get your attention really. And I think we could discuss it more, but that isn't really our purpose here today. So then I've actually asked you guys to fill out a form telling me your background knowledge, because I didn't know how much you know. And that's a problem, because we all know different things, don't we? And we have different needs, and I can't obviously cater for everybody, but I thought I would have a quick look and see, you know, whether you are familiar with certain concepts and information. So I'm going to go back to that after this and see what we found. But the 6 years ago means how it all started for me, because 6 years ago, one of my colleagues, Dr. Usmaliza in Education Department, she gave us a lecture on flipped classroom and the basic concept of it really and how it works. And she talked about preparing our own materials. And I remember Screencast-O-Matic was the program she introduced us to. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically a program that you can record yourself speaking and showing your PowerPoint. And I think it's a powerful tool, but like other things, it can be used rightly and wrongly. You know, if you have a very long lecture recorded, it's not necessarily a good idea. But anyway, that was how it started. And I remember her saying another thing, which was we need to make sure that our videos are bite-sized or short. So with those very simple pointers, I then set about using flipped classroom and getting used to it and getting my students used to it. And I've, over the years, developed my own style or my own strategies. And I'm hoping that that's what you will do as well, that you'll take what I share with you and develop it and innovate, in your own way, because there isn't only one way to do it, of course. So that's how it started for me. So you're going to need to get to my Google. I've made a Google Classroom, and I've given you the code here. And if you can now just spend a minute to go online to Google Classroom, key in that code, you should be able to see our Google Classroom. There's also a link here, which I can post in the chat if you can't access using the code. So that's job number one, really, is we all go and log into Google Classroom. And then when we go there, we can see, maybe I'll do the same thing. Maybe I'll try and get it up. So new share. And I probably have to open it first. So I'll let you guys access that while I'm doing the same thing. So bear with me.
Assalam, Dr. Shakour, excuse me.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can you post the links in the chat? It'll be easier for us, I think.
Okay, I can do that, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sort of trying to have two windows open at once. That's a new deal for me on Zoom.
Okay.
So
when you share a window, you don't share the screen. I think that would be easier.
right, but I'm not sure how I do that with Zoom. So
yeah, we can see your Google Classroom now.
all right, I have my Google Classroom in front of me. Do you have yours? We do have some people in there. Okay, good. I think you can actually add about 1,000 people into Google Classroom, which is handy. So let's now. Can you see what I'm doing? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we can
cool.
see.
How do I move this thing? Right, let's move that somewhere else. You can minimize it, I suppose.
Yes, you minimize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's really, I'm beginning to wish I hadn't used Zoom now, because it's very frustrating not being able to do what you want to do. Anyway, I'll have to survive because we're going to need it later. Actually, my original plan was to use Meet and then open Zoom, and then we'd all go to Zoom and then come back to Meet. But someone in CPD said, no, you shouldn't do that. That'll be confusing. So we're stuck with Zoom, or I'm stuck with Zoom. So thank you for your patience. So we're looking at the classwork here, and we have task 1, task 2, task 3, and then there's a quiz, and then a little bit about learner-centered learning. So here in the stream is where you would post your materials. I'll put a little note there. So when we come to the second part, we're having two parts. The first part is theory, the second part is practice. When we come to the practice, this is where you will put your materials, your learning outcomes, your resources. Okay, and this is in classwork where you will see the information or the tasks. If we open this one, task 1, it tells you that you're going to watch a short video and you're going to do something. So let's now come back to where we were, my PowerPoint, hopefully, and move on from there. So everybody's got the link, everybody's got in, hopefully. So the first job, as I said, is to watch a video about flipped classroom, a very short video. And then your first task is to draw your understanding of flipped classroom, how you see it, how you understand it. And then I've given a link to Padlet, which is another useful platform. And I'm hoping that you will take a pencil and paper and you will draw your concept or your sketch, and then you will share that to the Padlet, and then we can go to the Padlet and have a look at what you've done. Now, I was in a normal situation, I would say do this in pairs. I would say, okay, you and you get together and work together, or you guys make a group, but I can't do that so easily here. However, we've only got 30 people, so that will be okay, I think. So I'm going to post the link of the Padlet into the chat. I'm going to ask you to go and watch the video. And of course, if you don't need to do you don't have to do pen and pencil. If you want to draw it on a Google, on a sort of a software, on a Word, you can do that too. But ultimately, you need to upload it to the Padlet. So I'm going to give you 5 to 10 minutes to do that, and we'll see how it goes. Is everybody with me? Are you clear on what you have to do?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So go do it, and I'll see you it's now 9:24. So I'll see you at 9:34 in 10 minutes. And In the meantime, I'll be looking at the Padlet to see what's happening. Good luck. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Anybody there?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Dr.
Wonderful when
Shakour.
someone replies. You feel it's a lonely world, isn't it, when it's silent online?
Dr.
So I'm
Shakour.
now.
Dr.
Can you
Shakour,
see my?
Dr. Shakour,
Yes.
can you check? There are some questions at the chat box.
Sure.
Yeah.
First question, I've uploaded my sketch. Do I need to click share button? Is that for Padlet? You shouldn't need to know. You can just put it in Padlet. Okay, lagging internet is, I'm afraid, the path of the course. We all face that sometimes, and normally the best way to solve it is to throw money at it. Get a better package, but or get off the beach. That's a joke. So you can view the video in Flip Class in the Google Classroom if you have the link, and the link is in the chat. Okay, so let's now have a quick peep at your impressions of Flip Classroom, because the video and the infographic hopefully made it clear. Right now I can see one, and that 1, 2, okay, they're coming up now, that's good. Wow, this is neat. It's rather clever, isn't it? It's done online, done on a Word document. If I press that, it makes it bigger, hopefully. Out of the class, independent. During the class, applied guided with feedback. Beyond the class, review with activities. That's a very good summary of the video, I would say. This is rather cool. Hand-drawn. We've got, I mean, the person who drew this needs to explain it to us, really. Are you there, the owner of this rather interesting graphic?
I would like to know what it means as well.
Yes, there's no name on it, so we can't ask the person. They have to, maybe they've gone off for a cup of coffee. But I like it anyway. I think I could guess what it means, but that's not maybe right. So we'll wait for the oh, it does say it's by Sarah. Sarah, are you there? Seems she's not. What a pity. We'll ask her later. Okay, this is simple. Lecture shares educational materials, video slides. Students view and take notes. Lecture then assists the students' knowledge via.
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Shakour.
Yes.
It's me.
Welcome back.
Assalamu
Welcome
alaikum.
aboard. Can you please tell us what this means? It looks interesting.
Actually, I'm not good at drawing. Whatever I could make and convey the sense is just I tried to make a computer and a book, and it's, in fact, it's, you can say it's a diary actually, and learning by using different tools, using especially technology, and facilitating or accelerating the process of learning.
Okay, so it's quite abstract then, but caught our attention. So thank you for that. I think this one below, it's not a drawing, but it's very clear. Before the class, the students prepare. During the class, they practice. After, check and extend. So that, I think, is a good summary of the process. Content and practice. So we have quite a few different variations, all of which I think capture the essence of what it is. So let's now move forward. Done that. So there's another resource. It's a short text, and I'd like you to read that and then come up with your own questions about it. And again, if you can share, maybe this time you can share it in Google Docs. Now, I'm not trying to show off. that I know all these different apps and tools. I'm really trying to use the tool that would help us to do it best and most simply. And with Google Docs, you can actually put your name and put your questions beside them. And I thought that might work, and you can all work on it simultaneously. I suppose Padlet would do that too, but Google Docs is, I think, simpler in layout. And so I'm going to post a link for that. And after you've read, it'll take you, I think, a few minutes to read that text. In my view, it's quite comprehensive, but quite simple. And so task 2, as I said, go to Google Classroom, find task 2, read the text, make 3 questions. Now it says in pairs, but I suppose you're not able to work in pairs. I thought we might be able to do that, but I wasn't quite sure how. If anyone's got a suggestion how we can do it, if I was doing it with my students, they actually text each other. They sort of have a WhatsApp group, and they communicate. They've done it themselves. You know, they've got in touch with each other and made pairs, made groups, and they're rather better at it than some of us are. But because of time, I'm just going to say, put your name, put your questions, and we'll have a look at them, because we don't want to spend the whole session on this. This is just, as I say, a preparation activity. Is it clear what I want you to do?
Yes, Dr. Shakour.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right, let me get you that link for the Google Doc. It's actually, the link is in Google Classroom, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go there and see the link. So if you go to Classwork Task 2, there's the instruction. And as you would notice already, it's very important to have clear instructions. There's the text, there's the Google Doc. How much time do you want to do that? I was thinking 10 minutes. Do you want less or more, or that's okay?
It's okay with me.
Okay, so
Inshallah.
I'll see you again at 9:50. Good luck. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
But I think I'm here, supposedly. So I notice in the Google Docs that people are actually sharing their own question, which is fantastic. But my idea was that they would share the questions about the text, because that's the kind of basic knowledge. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we're coming up to the end of time. As I say, there's some really good questions, fascinating questions. I'm really keen to read them and discuss them, but bear in mind that we do want to just get the basic knowledge across to everybody, which is in the text. And I was hoping we would talk about that briefly. So try to have at least one question about the text in the classroom, please. And then maybe if you can highlight that, we can just quickly whiz through those and make sure we've all got an understanding. Okay, everybody, so we're back again, and hopefully you can hear me. It's a strange world, isn't it, the online world? I remember back in the day, I mean, I've been teaching in UIA since 1996, so that's 24 years. You know, I remember halfway along that journey thinking that, you know, everyone's raving about technology and saying how wonderful it is, but I personally think that on, you know, face-to-face discussion is, you know, in the classroom is actually a luxury, you know, because you can see everyone, you can, you know, touch everyone, and you can, you know, interact with everyone. And so now we're stuck with online, and, you know, whilst there are many benefits, I do still feel that it's a poor version of the real thing, in my opinion. But of course there are many things that you can do. So let's have a look at your questions, which are so fascinating. You know, when you ask students a question, you get a limited range of answers. I can see from the participants here, we've got very deep and, you know, extensive questions. The first one caught my attention actually, because how can we deliver values for Flipped Classroom? Just to check, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Good to know. I didn't want to be talking to myself. So why does it focus on content and not values? Short. I'm going to give short answers to this. My original plan was that you would answer these questions, but I'm looking at the time and thinking we need to move fast. So values and virtues, I think you can teach them online if you know how. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you wanted to inspire your students, to have iman, to have faith, which is a value, I think. We could argue whether faith is a value or not, but if you wanted your students to have, let's say, honesty, then, you could show them a very moving video about, I mean, I saw this one video about a beggar who actually put his money into the parking meter because he didn't want the person to get a parking fine, and I mean, there's a message there, and then you could have a discussion about it. So I think you can focus on whatever you want to focus on. And if you know how to use the technology, and if you know how to get students to read about, I mean, you could get the students to read material about values, and then you could discuss it and have a task set on it. So the answer is yes, you can, if you know how to do it. Second question says, can flipped classroom work without an LMS? The answer is yes. And I thought about this some time ago, because let's say you're in a country where you don't have technology. You could, in theory, print out materials or questions or a worksheet, give it to the students, they take it home, they read it, they come back to school, and then you do activities on it. So that's the basic principle of flipped classroom. And you could do that without technology, but why would we do that? So thirdly, this is a long one. Assuming smaller breakout sessions, Ooh.
Shakour, Aiman here.
Yes.
I suppose
yeah.
The number 1 and number 2 are what questions I would like to be answered in a later forum. But to answer the exercise, that's number 3. Thanks.
Oh, so you want me to look at number 3? We weren't clear about the questions that we should ask for this exercise. So here goes. What are the benefits of using flipped classroom? What are the types of activities we can be conducted? And how do we plan and implement the flipped classroom? Okay, so those are quite questions.
That's the question that you wanted us to address, right? So that's
I got
3.
you. Yeah, okay. So those are quite technical questions. So I'm going to throw that open to the class, and you're supposed to be able to answer those questions now because you've read the text. So let's give it a go. Any volunteers? Which is usually results in silence. First one's easy. Come on, somebody try.
Yeah, the students to participate more.
Make the students active. Yes. Yeah. Good answer. Good question. Good answer. Any other people with a different answer?
Can I try?
Please do.
For the benefits, I think it's we allow students to learn by doing, because they will be they have to watch the video and perhaps do something, to type. Learning by doing, I would say, through the flipped classroom.
Okay, depending on how you do it, of course. But if you expose the students to the content and then you apply that content in a task in class, then you are, hopefully learning by doing. It doesn't have to be learning by doing. And for your information, I was sort of trying to get you guys to experience the flip a little bit by giving you something to do and then asking you a question about it. It's kind of simulating that experience where students have to do something alone and then they come and share it with the class. So I hope that you appreciate what I'm trying to do. So second question, what are the types of activities that can be conducted for teaching using this method? Any takers?
Can we do online quiz? I mean, like quizzes, like KOED? to
Well,
make the session more lively?
I suppose.
Sorry, Dr. Shakour. When you asked us to do this exercise, the question that you asked us to pose.
If you're doing a flipped classroom, you would. Yes.
Sorry. Initially, my understanding was you wanted us to ask questions about other than what the material covers, right? But then after you explained that the questions that we are supposed to pose is basically summarizing the contents of those materials that you have posted on Padlet. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my 3 questions yang I say number 3 to number 4 here goes to is to answer the exercise that you have given, right? So when you talk about answering those questions, I suppose if you read the materials, you'll be able to answer those questions lah.
Correct.
But it's just insightful to see that sometimes our the challenge we face is we may not have posted the proper instruction.
Point taken.
When we ask the student to do something, so that's how I suppose that's how where the confusion is lah.
Okay, so I mean I accept.
Okay, thanks.
I accept that point. Yeah, in my mind it was clear that you would read it and make questions about the text. In your angle, you made questions about the concept. You know, we learn by our mistakes, and what seems clear to one person, I mean, I guess I thought it was clear, and I realized perhaps I could have made it clearer. So apologies for that. And I think hopefully there's a take-home point there, isn't there? You know, it's really crucial to make sure the students know what they're doing. Before you ask them to do
have
it.
that problem all the time. We thought we're clear, but we're not so clear.
Okay, so I didn't want to spend too long on this activity. This was the purpose was to get you to read and understand the concepts, maybe have a bit of interaction. So let's now move on. We can come back to, you know, if we have time, we can come back to these. You can come back to these. You have the links. So let's now go back to my PowerPoint and continue the process. But thank you, everybody, for your fascinating questions. I really, really want to read them. It's a bit like when you're on the radio and they say, you know, so-and-so has sent in a tweet. I wish, you know, maybe later I'll come back to them and share the best ones with you. PowerPoint. There we are. So we've done that. We've discussed the questions. The pros and cons of flipped classroom. Okay, and as you just see there, there's a quiz coming up. I'm going to give you a quiz in a short time. But I thought that talking about the pros and cons, there's actually in the Google Classroom some information about that, which I'm going to look at together, I think. So task 3 is the pros and cons. And I think the idea I had here was that you would discuss the pros and cons that you could foresee, post them, and then we could look at those. But I think I'm not going to do that now because at the end of this PowerPoint, I actually have listed some of them and we need to move on. So I'm going to skip task 3. And there's a saying, isn't there, that no plan is perfect. And I guess we have to be flexible. That is one of the things about online learning and flipped classroom is you have to be flexible. You have to adapt to the students, to the situation. So I'm going to do that myself and go back to my PowerPoint. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, or off the top of your heads, what do you think would be the pros and cons? I mean, internet access is number one problem, isn't it? If you haven't got internet, you're stuck, unless you do the kind of the book idea that I shared with you earlier. One of the pros is that students are active. I suppose one of here's another disadvantage that I've faced, and that is that students don't read the materials. And I think I saw someone else ask about that. You know, you put up these videos, you put up this information, you ask the students to read it, you come to class, they haven't done it. And I used to, once upon a time, I used to say to my students in face-to-face classes, I say, okay, those students who have read it, go and have a cup of tea. Those students who haven't read it, read it now. So that was one strategy. But the real best solution, I think, well, I have two. One of them is you have a little quiz at the beginning of class about the materials, so they know that they're going to be asked about it. And that, for most students, helps to motivate them. And if you give points for those quizzes, then bingo, you've cracked it. But we don't want to be too exam oriented, do we? We don't want to be test heavy. But I think it's a strategy you can use initially to get the habit, to get the pattern going, to get the system going. You can have a short question and answer at the beginning of class on what they're supposed to have read or watched. Okay. And my other solution, I'll say it now because I might forget. The other solution is to actually get them to do it in class. So, and this is where it becomes a bit of a hybrid, because you actually give them time to watch your materials, to read your materials, and then you do something related to it. And I'll come to that later. Okay. So quiz time, are you ready? Have you read the materials? Have you watched the videos? Now I'm going to test you. It's actually a very short, simple quiz. So do you want a couple of minutes to prepare for it, or are you ready to go for it?
Couple of minutes.
All right. So I will therefore start the quiz at 10. How about 10:10? 10 past 10, we'll start the quiz. It's short and easy. But if you want to just finish that video, reading that text, it'll help you to get 10 out of 10, inshallah. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that.
Dr. Shakour?
Yes.
Can we have the link to the quiz pasted in the chat, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I need to copy it. Can you see it on the screen?
Yeah, okay, this will do. Thanks.
Good luck. Assalamu alaikum. I noticed that quite a number of people have started but not finished. Not sure why. Suhaimi's done well, and Jannah Ibrahim seem to be near the end. Can I ask Nur Hayati Alwi, what happened to you? Are you with us?
I finished the quiz, Dr. Shakour. I think it's just the internet being a bit slow.
Ah, okay. Which is yours?
Izihan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think the other participants have got, okay, I've got a few people with 2 questions, 4 questions. Is that their internet or my internet? It must be theirs, I suppose.
Not sure.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
I finished as well, but on your screen it says that I'm still on question like halfway through.
Ah, so my question, maybe mine is lagging then.
Maybe you need to refresh, Dr. Shakour.
Okay, let me try that. Ah, okay, that's better.
Yes.
Looking more like it. I was worried for a moment because it's a pretty easy test. Not everybody's tried it by the look of it, but those that have got it right. So well done, everybody. Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't supposed to be difficult. It was just really a comprehension check and a break of activity. All right. So let's now proceed then, and. I'm going to, this was some of the questions about your prior learning. And I guess we could take a look at those things. But it would be faster to, I think Google Classroom, I think most people I could see are familiar with that. Online quizzes also, I think most people were familiar with Kahoot. Bloom's taxonomy, I need to check back and see what you said. But I think most of you were familiar with those first three. The second two, I don't think you answered yet, maybe because I added them afterwards. It was kind of an afterthought, because I thought perhaps if you don't know about constructivism and learner-centered learning, I ought to share something on that. And I do have a bit of information about that, but I need to look back and see your responses. So let's now go to Google Forms. Hopefully I can find that and see what you said.
Where the hell it is?
Okay, so let's have a look at those responses and see what we found. So this was that's your careers and departments, nice range of different specializations. So 50% have a low knowledge, which is why you're here, and the other 47% medium. So that makes sense. Google Classroom, most of you know that, or have a reasonable amount of knowledge on that. So that's what I thought. Constructivism, okay, so not many people are familiar with that. Now, I suppose because we're in education, it's a learning theory that we're very familiar with. So perhaps I will spend a little bit of time at the end, if I can, talking about that. Or I have a definition of it, actually, but I can share with you. Learner-centered learning, somewhat medium amount of knowledge for most people, okay. Online quizzes, everyone, well, 50% of people know Kahoot, and then quizzes, which is the main ones I think we want to use. Wordwall is a very nice activity that students really like, and I think it's worth investigating. Mentimeter also are very effective. So I would suggest that those people who are not familiar with them, you can make use of those for class activities. Now this is important, Bloom's taxonomy. It seems like, as educators, we are familiar with that. But quite a lot of people not so familiar with it, which then leads me on to the learning outcomes. And this is something we focus a lot on in education, is writing learning outcomes or learning objectives. So it looks to me as though a little bit of talk about that wouldn't be a good idea. And then these are your experiences, which we'll come back to. Okay, so thank you everyone for your responses there. Let's just minimize that and go back here. So I'm not going to talk about Google Classroom or online quizzes. Bloom's taxonomy, it's not rocket science. It's quite commonly known. But what we normally do is we go to you can go online and you can find a visual. I'll type in the verbs, because these are the verbs that we use to make our objectives. I hope that's big enough. Can you see those?
Yeah, it's okay. It's a bit blurry, but it's okay.
Sorry for the poor quality. But, you know, at the top we have the different levels of Bloom. Knowledge is a low order thinking compared to creating and evaluating, which are the high order thinking. So if you want your students, if you want to write an objective for your lesson, you know, you need to ask yourself, do I want them simply to remember the information? In which case I would use understand and know. And I would use a verb like students will describe, students will explain, students will define, students will describe, will identify. So, you know, your objectives will be using the lower end of Bloom. And if you want them to be more creative and more high order thinking, you would go to the top end. So if we look at analyze, you get them to compare something with, you know, to compare two theories, compare two scenarios, compare to systems, models, or if you move up to evaluate, you get them to appraise, to judge, you know, which, if I was, for example, an engineer, which theory or which equation is better than the other. And if I'm moving up into creating, I could get my students to plan, you know, if I'm teaching economics, they could plan, yeah, I'm not an economics expert, perhaps a project. So the point I'm making here is that we can use these verbs to make our objectives. Okay. I hope that was a clear summary. And if we then go back to my cat, which is climbing on my table, the learning objectives, I've talked a little bit about that. Constructivism and learner-centered learning. I noticed that you didn't all know about that. So let's have a look at the definition which I have of that. So here we have a definition of constructivism, and it says, it's a theory that says learners, okay, so you have to fill the gaps, basically. Anyone like to try? I'll let you read that in silently. So would anyone like to try and fill the gaps? Constructivism is the theory that says learners construct knowledge rather than just something taken information.
Simply?
Just simply taking information. It's grammatically almost there. The word is passively.
Passive.
Good try. Passively taking information. So rather than them listening to you talking, they actually construct the knowledge themselves. Okay, they don't just passively take information, they process the information. As people experience the world and reflect upon those experiences, they something their own representation.
They create.
They create is a good answer, and I think it's the right answer. Or they construct. You could use construct or create their own representation and incorporate new information into the pre-existing
knowledge.
Yes, knowledge. Okay, good answer. So as you know, to say that in a simple way, it's rather than us telling students information, we give them information and get them to absorb it, to understand it, and to construct it in their own way. Maybe if I was to give, there is an example actually, I hope. So an example, an elementary school teacher presents a class problem to measure the length of the Mayflower, which is a ship. Rather than starting the problem by introducing the ruler, the teacher allows students to reflect and to construct their own methods of measurement. So the teacher says, okay, how can we measure this ship? You know, it's obviously a big ship. And the students have to sit down and think about the concept of measurement, which is obviously, it takes longer for them to do it, but they will then understand the process and the idea better and probably remember it better because they had to discuss it and think about it and solve it. So it's actually very related to the next concept, which is learner-centered learning. And my question is constructivism suitable for adult learners? Because this example was for elementary school teachers. So what do you think? Do you think this is also suitable for adults?
I don't see why not.
Why not? Yes.
No, yes, I agree with you. I think it's equally applicable. Of course, the task that you ask them to do or the knowledge that you give them will be higher, but the process is the same. We all learn in different ways, but the process is similar. Okay, so that's the concept of constructivism, a very interesting one, and it's also related to learner-centered learning. And again, fill the gaps. If you would, I'll give you a minute just to read. Okay, so any takers? A learner-centered approach views learners as learners as active agents. They bring their own
learning,
values,
knowledge,
could be learning, knowledge, past experiences, education, and ideas, and this impacts how they take on board new
information.
Yes, information and learn. It differs significantly from a traditional
method,
not method, teacher-centered approach. Yes, teacher-centered approach. So again, you can see that this is related, can't you? It's the students who are doing the work, the students who are doing the learning, and they're applying their knowledge, their understanding to new knowledge, and it's not the teacher telling them; it's them discovering. So learner-centered, discovery learning, based learning, and constructivism are all interrelated concepts or methods. And flipped classroom is, I suppose, a development of that, where you give the knowledge or the information to the students, they process it, then you get them to apply it. So it's actually a very powerful idea, which I hope you will appreciate and use, as I have been doing. 10 characteristics of learner-centered accept. This is actually I was going to ask you to find out the wrong one, but I think we are going to move on. So you can come back to this. We can come back to this later. But just to point out that these characteristics ought to be in our classes, at least some of the time. But one of them's wrong. Okay, moving on. So I was going to ask you to find a joke about flipped classroom, constructivism, learner-centered learning, or blended learning. And I was going to ask you to go off and find that. But I'm going to postpone that, I think. I have a couple. One of them's, I think, good, and one of them's bad. The bad one I'm going to share with you now. This is the only joke I could find about flipped classroom. And it says, you know, Miss Grigwater, I don't think you've quite grasped the idea of flipped classroom. And as you can see, she's flipped the class upside down. So that's supposed to be funny. I don't find it very funny. And I'm hoping you can find a better one. I mean, you know, with the Google out there and people talking about these things, I'm sure there are better examples. I have one at the end I'm going to share with you, inshallah. So that was a bit of fun, a bit of a break. And as you will see in my later slides, and as I mentioned earlier, entertainment and engagement are an important part of online. If you don't have it, people go to sleep, people get bored, people go away. So, you know, keeping that interest going is a challenge for us. And we have to use whatever we can, whether it's music, whether it's quiz, whether it's questions, whether it's pictures. We've got to be more creative, I think. Now we're going to apply FCM. So this is part 2 of our workshop. And this is just a little bit of theory. This is my idea of what of the must-haves. If you're designing materials online for remote learning, you must have objectives. You've obviously got to have online materials. You've got to have high-order thinking questions. You've got to have interaction, and you've got to have assessment. So these are the must-haves, the basics of flipped classroom, and also remote learning. Any comments?
Dr. Shakour?
Yes.
Sorry, I just have a question, and based on your experience with flipped classroom.
Okay.
Do you find that the flipped classroom is equal for all, in the sense that both the weaker students and the stronger students both benefit equally, or do you think it benefits mostly for the weaker students, for example?
Okay, I think the answer to that one is it depends how you do it. And I suppose there are, as I've said earlier, there are many ways to do it. It's a good question because it also depends on the age that you're talking about. If you're talking about children, if you're talking about adults, you know, undergraduates, postgraduates, the answer will be different, I think, for the different levels. But let's see, so are you talking about children or undergraduates?
Mainly undergraduates, I guess, because there's quite a number of them in a class. So I'm assuming, like in traditional learning, the lecturer would be consistent in the way that they deliver the lecture. But when it comes to
Sure.
student and learner-centered, obviously there's a variety. The approaches may be the same, but perhaps the level of thinking that the student practices when they do this type of flipped classroom might be different according to their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yes, okay, I've got your question. It's a good question. I just wanted to point out a deliberate mistake that no one's picked up before I talk about any more about that. It has 3 elements of remote learning, and there's actually 5, and I was just checking to see if you were all still with me. And, I mean, my answer to that question is that I actually use a lot of group work. And I put students into groups when I give them assignments, when I give them presentations, when I give them activities. And so generally, they support each other. And, you know, you can support the less able students. It says my connection's unstable, yeah. You can support them with their peers. That's one answer. And I suppose the beauty of online or flip is that you can give them the materials, they come to class, you give them the assignments, and then you can actually help the different students with their different needs. Now, I don't know what your specialization is. Are you a language teacher? Are you a scientist? What's your area?
I'm coming from Kuantan campus, so I teach mainly about research methodology and biostatistics.
Okay, so I guess as I've already said, you give them the information, you give them the task. Perhaps as we would do in a normal class, you would differentiate the material. So if you've got the less able and you've got the smart kids or the smart students, so you may grade your, you know, you give them the basic, you give them intermediate, you give them advanced materials so they can study at their own ability. And online, your classroom activities, you may also start with a simpler question and activity and build up. So I think we ultimately have to try to differentiate our teaching, whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face. And you could build that into Flip, and it's a very interesting idea. I hadn't thought about it, actually. You know, you've raised that point. I think it can be done, yes, but it would take effort. And perhaps you've already realized, or if you haven't realized it now, you soon will. A lot of the effort of the teacher is before the class, the preparation work. In the class itself, it should go, you know, you guys are doing the work, the students are doing the work, but it's the preparation beforehand that is where our effort and thought goes. So now let's move forward. This is something I'm going to come back to because of time. So let's get moving. So we have breakout rooms, and you're supposed to go to your breakout rooms. There are 7 rooms, and we've got 7 groups of colleagues. And you have your last task is to do the following things. Write 1 or 2 learning objectives, upload it to the Google Classroom in Stream, try to include 1 high order and 1 low order as we looked at Bloom. Secondly, select some resources, try to find a video, try to find a website, try to find whatever is relevant information, upload it to Google Stream. And then lastly, prepare an assessment, an online quiz or a task or an assignment, and upload that to the stream with your instructions. So you can probably work in your groups and maybe collaborate and delegate those different tasks, because you've got less than half an hour. I wanted to see what you've done, but you're going to need at least 20 minutes, I think, to do that. So is everybody clear what you're supposed to do? We'll put you, or I think the CPD people will put you into a group automatically. We've already allocated. So if you can see my message here, upload your group learning objectives, resources, quiz, and don't forget to put your group number so we know who you are.
Okay.
Bring out the breakout rooms.
Okay. So for the participants, you're going to see a pop-up asking you to join the breakout rooms. And there are some of the participants who are not registered. So I'm just going to put you randomly because I don't know which kuliah you are. So just have a go and good luck. So I'm going to open the rooms now, yeah?
And we'll see you at 11.
Yep.
Work fast.
So I think we have done our breakout room, so we come back to the main room, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome back. That was lightning fast, Dr. Suhaimi.
Because I learned from other group, they use very simple topic, which is a French language.
French language.
I never learned French, but many of us interested in French. We have a French instructor in our group.
Which group were you in, by the way?
The language group, economics, language, KLM.
Nice.
So most of them language people.
Wow, I'm just mind blown how you did that so fast. Let me have a look at what you've done and see if it's quality or quantity.
So Dr. Saira, I think we'll upload into the stream. So we use Google document for us to do the brainstorming and then to write everything.
Cool.
Then I think she will upload into the streams.
Impressive. All right. I'm just going to minimize this and have a quick look at what's there. So, explain basic characteristics of semiconductor materials. Wow. Design, analyze DC and small signal circuits. Nice. Lecture, slides, assessment. Wow, they've done it. The KOED, I mean, you guys are super fast. I suppose you've been doing this for some, you're not newbies, are you? You're experienced and knowledgeable, so
never did this, Philip. We just discussed, Doctor.
Say again?
I never did this, Philip.
I see. So you're a quick learner. And I mean, I'm just really sharing the concept with you at this point. You guys are going to have to go back and think more and practice more. It's just a kind of a crash course, isn't it, really? And now we're challenged with the problem that some are doing it and some are finished. And time's up. So what do we do? I could actually cancel all the breakout rooms, but I don't want to do that because they're just getting started. So maybe you could look for your joke while you're waiting for the others. See if you can find a joke about constructivism, learner-centered learning, flipped classroom, any of those concepts to share with us. Or if you want to carry on with your materials and improve it, because I think it's never perfect, is it? You can always do better. So I give you the option of occupying yourself while we wait. I think possibly another 5 more minutes and we'll come back together. How does that sound?
Okay, good. Yeah.
So 11:10 and we'll come back together.
Dr. Shakour, where do we share the joke? Is it uploaded?
Let's see. What did I say in my PowerPoint? I think it was probably to Padlet, but I'll double check on that. Let's see. I didn't say, did I? No instruction.
It's verbal, I suppose.
Sorry?
A verbal joke? And you just tell a joke?
That would be fine if you can do that, yeah?
No, I can't do it.
I guess Padlet would be another option if you can post it in Padlet, or just tell us.
Okay.
You have
I'll
one?
post it in Padlet. Yeah, it's just a cartoon.
Nice. Okay, so put it. I think I'll put it in Padlet would be the easiest.
All right. Thanks.
Welcome.
So Dr. Shakour, they need to come back at 11:10.
I think if we come back at 11:10, we'll see what we've got. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll broadcast them. I will broadcast to them.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Are we here?
Yeah, I'm closing the rooms now.
Okay. Welcome back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wowed. I'm actually so impressed with you because you've done what I asked you to do and you did it super fast. I was just having a quick look at the
It was fun.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, wow. I suppose when you're used to working with students, you know, you're moving at a slower speed. Lecturers, boom, they've got it. They've got it at the fingertips. So alhamdulillah, I mean, not everybody is finished. I realize that. I feel like this should have been a 2-day workshop rather than a 2-hour workshop. We've covered a lot of ground in a short time. And alhamdulillah, I think we now need to just wind things up. But before we do, let's just have a quick look at what you did do. So this is our stream. And we have...
share the screen, Dr. Shakour.
Okay. Hang on.
You always forgot that, huh?
Yeah, it's... Okay, share screen. Can you now see? Can you see the Google Classroom? Our Google Classroom?
Yes.
Okay, so if we go down the stream, we've got learning outcome, we've got resource, and we've got a quiz. This is like a quiz questions. If we go down to the next one, we've got CFS have got their learning outcome about business. They've got their resources. They've got their assessment. And then SALPAD, they also have the similar thing. They have learning outcome, they have a text, and they have a quizzes. So, you know, it's pretty, I mean, my hair's standing up on end at the moment. I'm thinking, my goodness, you actually, you know, achieved a lot in a very short time. Now, the quality of those resources, you know, I would need to look further. I did actually try to do the quiz on circuits, and I couldn't even answer the first question. So, you know, hopefully your students will do better. But, you know, you've got the basic idea, really, and it's now a matter of refining that. As I was saying to one of the other participants, I'm only really giving you the basic concept. It's now, you know, your job to go and, you know, learn more and practice it. And if we go to the classwork, because I actually also opened the task, and we have a couple of people there who have submitted something. Let's have a look at what they have, if we can. It says turned in, but when I click on it, nothing's happening. Not sure why. Maybe there's something with the way they turned it in. I actually personally get my students to submit to the stream if it's materials, because they have time to do that. You know, they have time to discuss with each other and plan, and then when they upload it in one time. And so that works okay if you've got, if you give them a few days, if you say to them, okay, please find, you know, some videos on this subject or a joke on this subject, they can send it to the stream. But if it's a task like a video, or, I mean, that's two options really. You can have it in, if you want the system to mark it, you can put it in assignments. If you want to just everyone to see it, that's the issue. If you want everybody to see it, then it goes in the stream. If you want it as an assignment that only you see and mark, then it goes in the assignments. So that's the difference really. So now I'm going to go back to, and I did ask someone to upload jokes here. Did anyone do it? Not yet. Let's go back to the PowerPoint that I was doing with you, because I want to wind up really. Have I got to share that as well? New share. Back to the PowerPoint. Share. So you've, I mean, that's the first time I've actually used Breakout Rooms online, and it's a new experience for me. It's a bit challenging, I have to say, but it did work. And so I would suggest that if you wanted to do that, you need to get the premium version of Zoom. I think it's worth the money. You know, if you want to have group work, that's the way to do it. So now I want to share my PowerPoint. Why isn't it doing it? Minimize that. Okay, slideshow from current slide. So that was my bad joke. This we've done. And that as well. These were my tips really for you, because I've been doing this, as I told you, for some time. And there's a few tips and tricks that I would like to share with you before we go. So the first one is, you've got to have questions and answers going on, discussions, interactions. It's very important to have that. As we've been having some questions and answers, you know, you need to do that with your students. Otherwise, if it's just from you only lecturing, they will switch off. Secondly, give time for them to read the materials. If you can post the materials a week ahead, that's better. If it can be 3 days ahead, that's okay. 1 day ahead is not enough. So give them time. Thirdly, you know, when you're doing your session online like this, live, have breaks, have changes, have fun activities, you know, because we need variety. Fourthly, when you're choosing your resources, be choosy. Don't just choose the first video. Don't choose the first website, you know, but choose the best if you can. Go for quality. There's lots of good ones and bad ones. I mean, there's lots of bad ones and good ones out there. Try to include HOTS. You know, HOTS questions make them think. It's constructivist. It makes them, you know, internalize. So not just low order questions. And 6, set a short quiz at the beginning of your sessions to make sure that they have read the materials. So those are 6, and a couple more here. Gamify. Now this is something which it might be controversial, because I actually give points to the students. When they answer my question, I give them a point, I give them a star. And it sounds a bit childish, but it really works. And I would suggest, and I didn't do it with you, but I was tempted to say, okay, the groups can answer the question, they get a point. It works with undergraduate students. I guess it might work with postgraduates as well. So have points, have stars, have competition. Number 8, the students can make their own resources. You know, learner-centered learning, ask them to make a video, ask them to make a PowerPoint and share it with the group. That's a good way to get them to learn. Number 9, collaboration. Put them into groups, use group work. It's really effective. And number 10, whatever materials they share or you share, keep it short, keep it simple. 3, what do you think would be the maximum time for a video?
5 minutes.
Someone says 5 minutes. Yes, I agree. That would be probably long enough. I mean, if you imagine you've got a video and it's 5 minutes, that's not too bad, is it? If you've got a 20-minute video, no one's going to watch it. They're going to either skip it or drop it. So 3 minutes, I think, is really good. 5 minutes is probably maximum. So here's the trick, or here's the tip. If you've got a big topic, break it into pieces. You know, 3 5-minute videos is much better than 1 15-minute video. So that's something to bear in mind. And this is my joke, by the way. I don't know if you've seen this. Are you there? Anybody there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my joke about online learning. If you've seen it, Sorry, if you haven't seen it, enjoy.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Can't hear the voice. Can't hear the sound. I think you have to share the sound.
You can't hear the sound?
You
That's a
share only
disaster.
with audio, not video, not the audio.
Oh dear. Okay, well, you don't actually need the sound
Yeah.
because it's just talking. So for this one, just watch and don't listen.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
He's also sleeping.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
that's cool.
Okay.
That's the joke.
Yeah,
All
don't know
right.
this.
So, okay.
Not just the students are wagging it, the teacher's wagging it too.
Yeah.
So this is a scary thing about online, right?
Yeah.
Can be anything.
Okay, I'm going to whiz through my other slides just for fun. The opposite of learner-centered is teacher-centered, which of course we don't want. This is some theory about, this is actually a site that you can visit if you want to learn more about learning outcomes. You can visit this video. There should be a link there somewhere. Some resources. These are the examples of the kind of tools you can use for online, oh. What's going on? Okay, so that wasn't what I wanted, but this is what I want. And this is some of the advantages of learner-centered learning. And you can see that it makes the learning meaningful. It gives them social skills. It makes it fun. They can participate. They're active. They can they learn teamwork. They're accountable, and yeah, they can actually help each other. They can tutor each other. But the disadvantages, of course, is that it takes more time for them to learn. Sometimes they've got to process it themselves. It requires special skills on the part of the teacher and the students, and not everybody likes working together. So here's a question for you. If constructivism and learner-centered learning are Western concepts, how suitable are they for Muslims? Anyone like to say suitable, unsuitable?
Suitable.
Okay, I agree with you. I think they can be used. It's like a knife, you know, it can be used for the purpose that you intend it. But there is a challenge, I think, for maybe the Islamic values and the Islamic faith. We need to think how we can do that. You know, and the soft skills. I mean, we're not interacting face to face, so it's got to be planned, I think, properly. And this is my conclusion for today, really, because it answers that question. I don't know if you've heard this hadith about Mu'adh bin Jabal, who, when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ intended to send Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, he asked him, "How will you judge when the occasion of deciding a case arises?" He replied, "I shall judge in accordance with Allah's book." He asked, "What will you do if you do not find any guidance in Allah's book?" He replied, "I shall act in accordance with the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He then asked, what will you do if you do not find any guidance in the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah or in Allah's book? He replied, I shall do my best to form an opinion and I shall spare no effort, which I think translates as is jihad. Messenger of Allah then patted him on the breast and said, praise be to Allah who has helped the Messenger of Allah to find something which pleases the Messenger of Allah. In other words, the Prophet was happy with him because he was going to use his own initiative and his own effort to solve the problem. And I suppose that my understanding of that is that, you know, if we ask students to put effort and to find the answer, that's actually also part of the Sunnah. It's part of Islam. You know, it's not just a Western concept. So I think that is the end of the line for today. We've sort of achieved some of the objectives in some way. I'm grateful to you for your efforts and ideas, and I look forward to your comments and your suggestions in the chat or in the Google Classroom. So before we end, has anyone got a joke to share with us? I think there was one of our participants who said he did. Can we call upon him or her to end with a joke?
Not sure if it's related. It's on Padlet. I've uploaded the cartoon.
All right, let's go to the Padlet and see what's there, if I can. It's closed. All right, so I'm looking on the Padlet to see the joke, and perhaps it's at the top. You didn't watch the video. I can't wait to hear your excuse. Okay.
that wasn't me. That's not me.
I see. Okay. Is that a raccoon? That's me, I suppose, asking the students, or it's you asking the students why they didn't watch it. That's a new problem, isn't it? It's a 21st century problem. I like that one.
I didn't post this. It's someone else.
Okay, where's yours?
Not sure. It should be. Maybe it's just slow.
We have to refresh the page, Dr. Shakour.
We have to. Should we refresh?
Yes.
Okay, I've just refreshed it.
It's still not there. It's okay.
Still not there. Maybe you can read it to us, and we'll finish with you.
No, it's too long for me to read. It's just Calvin and Hobbes cartoon.
Can you? It's a card. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe I can share it on the screen.
Can you share it?
Let me try.
Shakour has to stop sharing so that Dr. Izihan can share.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask Dr. Izihan to share with us.
Let's see.
Right, we got it.
Yeah.
How do they know load limit on bridges, Dad? They drive bigger and bigger trucks over the bridge until it breaks. Then they weigh the last truck and rebuild the bridge. Oh, I should have guessed. Dear, if you don't know the answer, just tell him.
It's a civil engineering joke, so I don't know if others can relate.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure it out because I'm not a civil engineer. But can you explain it to us? And I know if you have to explain a joke, it kind of spoils a joke. But anyway, I can
suppose
see constructivism.
It's sort of related to flipped class. You should teach a theory first. So this like testing before going to the theory. So you let the bridge fail before you build it properly.
Okay.
I now can see it.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's sort of HOT joke, I suppose.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. So.
It's a high order thinking joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, everybody. Well, you know, we've achieved some of our objectives to some extent. You know, and I apologize for any of the glitches and the hitches. we're all learning. We're all, you know, struggling. As I told you in the beginning, I'm very familiar with Meet, and I did one session like this with Meet, and I didn't have any problems. I think I will do that next time. But it was good to have the breakout rooms anyway. So thank you, everyone. Jazakumullahu khaira. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time. I hope you gained something from this session. And with the flipped classroom, you know, you have a lot of resources. You have a lot of options. Go out there and try it out and share with me, inshallah, when you become an expert.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shakour. I think in the chat they asked whether you can share the slides later.
Yes, okay. What I'll do is I'll put the slide into the Google Classroom as a resource, and then you can access it there, inshallah.
Okay.
So with that, let's end with Tasbih Kufara to make up for all our mistakes. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum and thank you.